Hey everyone! I wanted to have a chat today about opera at the movie theater. Now, I know that purists probably don't approve of opera at the movie theater, but purists need to understand that we all don't live in big cities with big opera companies that give you like 10 offerings a year. Many opera fans do live in such large cities with such blessings as a big opera company or even more than one opera company to choose from. But most of us are in middle America or whatever you flyover country, whatever you want to call it. If we have an opera company at all, it's amazing. And if they can provide us with like one thing a year, it's amazing. Here in Rochester, when I started to go on my opera journey to intentionally get in more opera and learn more things, the situation was we have one student opera company, and their purpose is to give their students a good experience. They are not interested in giving new opera fans a good background in opera, giving you your first Madama Butterfly or something like that. They have their own reasons for what they put on. So instead of getting in a nice canon of base operas that you really want to see when you are first becoming an opera fan, like Tosca and La Boheme, all those things, the basics, you get things like Assassins, Hydrogen Jukebox. Just two great examples. I wouldn't say Hydrogen Jukebox is good by any means. I'm sure Assassins is okay as a more modern piece, but it's not necessarily what you want when you're trying to educate yourself on the basic operas. So the other options when I first started that journey were a local company who could manage to put on about 2 productions and a children's production a year, which was great, but they kind of had some problems and they're gone. And there was a third company, which was a chamber opera company. So again, they're not putting on the big works. It was fun, but it's not when you really want to get in the big operas because you're just starting out as a fan and you want to, see these things. They weren't the place to go for that either, and they are now also gone. So that was then. Today, about 9 years later, maybe a little longer, we have one opera company which puts on one main opera a year. Count it, one. And it usually is, one of the big classics. And then we have the student opera, which gets continually more fringe. Although they did do Coronation of Poppaea last year, or maybe 2 years ago, which was good. So that's where we're at. If you want to embark on opera seeing in Middle America, you thank the deities that there is opera at the movie theater. And even back 9 years ago, there were multiple offerings for opera at the movie theaters. We have a local independent cinema who had a series. That series was called Opera in Cinemas, and they would feature operas from all over Europe, which was great, but they kind of fizzled out because now a lot of European companies do have their own. There's the Royal Opera puts out their own, and I think some of the other ones also do. We just don't have them here in Rochester. And of course the Met has their live broadcasts about 11 times a year, 10 or 11. And this is how I've managed to get in my opera education and see both the basic operas and up-and-coming operas. So to the purists who say, oh, you must see it in the theater, I say, you can't always. If you're going to depend on that, you're going to really limit yourself unless you are living in a big city with lots of offerings. So there are some things to consider about seeing opera at the movie theater. First of all, you're going to see all the backstage action, which I find particularly magical. Some people don't like that. They feel like it's blowing the mystery, but I just get fascinated by that backstage stuff. You get some interviews with the cast, which gives you a little perspective from their point of view, and you get some background information, and I think all of this enriches it. Compared to, you go in, you get your program, and that little bit of blurb that somebody wrote in the program is kind of like your only context. You just hope that the production isn't too wacky and that you can, that the story holds together. What I mean about that. So, again, about the movie theater, there's some benefits. Here in Rochester, they are not packed. There's always room to sit off to the side, so that when something sad happens and you start blubbering, nobody needs to know. And you can feel free to just express yourself quietly without anybody knowing too much, except for the other people pulling out their Kleenex. You can have popcorn, which I find a big benefit to the whole opera experience. Now, it is possible to eat popcorn in a sensitively opera way. You do not want to be crunching big, huge handfuls of popcorn during, like, Visa d'arte or some other big emotional aria where everybody is sort of intensely watching or waiting for the perfect note. This is not the time for big crunching. But on a big choral scene or a big orchestral bit, munch away, because you're going to sit off to the side so you can cry without anyone noticing, and no problem on the crunching. Also, you can restrict yourself to popcorn eating only pre-show and intermission times. I mean, this is perfectly fine. And I do encourage people to use the concessions at the movie theater, because that is where movie theaters get their money. And if they see opera fans supporting them really well, then they are encouraged to keep providing live and HD series. So that was my thoughts on sitting in the movie theater and watching operas. I've heard people say the sound, oh no, it couldn't possibly be the same. It couldn't possibly be as intense when you're at the movie theater as opposed to live. Well, I have been live several times in my life, and even a few times at the Met. And all of the acoustics at the Met are not the same, which is not something I knew before I bought my tickets. And I found myself saying, I can't hear, and really wishing I was at live in HD. But the Met is fun, and you can go to the opera quiz, and it's just a whole different thing. And if you get to know some insiders, you can figure out where the better acoustic seats are. So, locally, when I go to live opera, I'm always thinking, oh, but the orchestra is far too loud. I can't hear. So to all those people who say you hear better in the theater, I say, not always. My hearing isn't great anyway, so I'm not going to hear all those perfect pitch things that the really experienced opera lovers know. The ones who have grown up with opera and have a music education. I'm never going to know all that stuff, so it sounds fine to me. Maybe not to you. So I was wondering what kind of experiences you may have had at the movie theater operas, if you've had them for better or for worse, what you found. And let's see, I wrote some notes here. Let's see if I missed anything. Oh, one little note. Get aggressive with the staff at the movie theater. At my movie theater, something goes wrong every single time. So if you're sitting in there and that the picture should be on with the pre-show and the slides, and you're looking at a black screen with some random audience noise, you go and you tell them, hey, we need picture in Theater 12. And I have had all kinds of problems like that. So do not hesitate to go to staff, because you are paying enough for that ticket to say, hey, we want a good experience. So make sure you do that. So that was my one note that I forgot. Make sure you get what you've paid for. So that has been my experience at movie theater opera. I love it. Purists say, eh. So what do you think? All right, everybody have a great night.